rest of the world?
Well, that's apparent because you can see the pictures from all over the world, and I get them constantly. Some areas are worse than others. The excuse for this is, number one, weather modification, number two, to save us from global warming, and number three, to save us from the terrorists. A lot of these programs, of which there are many patterns and which has been designated as wake vortex simulation carried out by NASA Langley Research Center, many of these operations and the patents go on to explain how if there is a biological attack by terrorists at some point, that these exercises and practices will, in a sense, save us with the spider webbery that comes down from the aerosol spraying, potentially gathering the chemical mass spray that could be sprayed on any given population. The problem with that is the terrorists don't have the means to deliver this. They don't have the access to deliver this over the American populace per se. And the only people who have been doing this, that is biological experiments on the American people, is the military themselves, which has been admitted from everything from Operation Shad to the spraying that happened in San Francisco, I believe back in the 60s and the 70s, that literally killed people.
Again, I may not be able to ascribe intent, but what I can say is that it is expected that there will be increased mortality as well as the potential of a huge host of unknown pathogens that we are subject to, and this is not based on speculation. There's a whole arena of biological research that we haven't even begun to touch on.
This image of a technocrat pulling the levers of weather control appeared on the cover of Collier's magazine in 1954. We were in a weather control race with the Soviet Union at the time, and an Air Force general had just announced to the press that the nation that controls the weather will control the world. The magazine article inside by President Eisenhower's weather advisor, Harold Orville, provided detailed ways of conducting weather warfare.
The first documented applications of weather warfare was during the Vietnam War, using very old-fashioned methods of cloud seeding to disrupt the supply routes of the Viet Cong.
As a result of the international uproar over Project Popeye, on the 10th of December 1976, the United Nations passed General Assembly Resolution 3172. It explicitly banned the use of weather modification in warfare. The weather wars were over, at least temporarily.
Now, the fact that there was an international agreement is an acknowledgement that the weapon systems actually exist. The US Air Force, in a document entitled Owning the Weather in 2025, states in no uncertain terms, in 2025, US aerospace forces can own the weather. Weather modification offers the warfighter a wide range of possible options to defeat or coerce an adversary. The intervention could be designed to modify the weather in a number of ways, such as influencing clouds and precipitation, storm intensity, climate, space, or fog. With few exceptions, they involve infusing either energy or chemicals into the meteorological process in the right way at the right place and time. So we know that nuclear weapons exist. We are informed as to the destructive capabilities of nuclear weapons. But when the issue of environmental modification techniques is raised, public opinion is totally unaware that these weapon systems actually exist. They don't know that they exist. Okay, and they're not being discussed. They're not being discussed in the universities. They're not being discussed by the media, and the extent to which they can actually undermine human life on planet Earth is not addressed. We now have HAARP, and HAARP has the capabilities of modifying selectively weather patterns in different parts of the world, floods, hurricanes, earthquakes, and so on. Again, no actual evidence in the public domain of these techniques having been used against an enemy or either for defensive or offensive purposes.
No nation, however large or small, wealthy or poor, can escape the impact of climate change. Rising sea levels threaten every coastline. More powerful storms and floods threaten every continent. More frequent droughts and crop failures breed hunger and conflict in places where hunger and conflict already thrive. The security and stability of each nation and all peoples, our prosperity, our health, and our safety are in jeopardy.
Each time the climate change conferences meet, there is a refusal on the part of climate specialists and scientists to actually address the issue of climatic modification and the use of climate for military use.
We can discern that in the sample of air where we collected the 14 liters, there is a signal of barium, which is 10 times higher than the blank value. And we can clearly see a difference there. In the 14 liters of air, we detected 8 micrograms, which was in that filter. And if you calculate that, then you are approximately at 5 micrograms per cubic meter. What surely can be added is that the sample volume was quite small, with these 14 liters. And to confirm this result, which I think should be possible, we would need to take a bigger sample, to be at around 50 liters, and then chances are very good of confirming this result.
Finding barium despite such a small sample, even in this low concentration, surprised me, because barium does not naturally occur in this altitude.
They're using flames, they're using aluminum, and they're using barium. And it's time that we stand up and stop this experiment.
This is about our life. This is about the flora, the fauna. Everything on Earth is being affected. When are we going to wake up and actually understand that we are all one?
Please inform yourself about what is happening to our children and our future. This is your planet too.
All of those who don't believe, all of those who are critical of this issue, understand that there's a whole growing army of us out there, and we are attempting to warn the public.
Google chemtrails, Google geoengineering, Google stratospheric aerosol spraying, Google solar radiation management.
So let's save mankind. Let's save this planet before it is too late. This needs to stop.
I just want the blue sky back that we used to have in the past, and not such white skies like we have currently.
It's our sky, it's our sun, it pertains to everyone, you know what I mean? We need to be aware of this because it's death from above.
Hopefully we'll be able to raise awareness of the chemtrails just that little bit more.
And we are human race that requires the sun, requires the earth, requires water, and requires air for survival.
If those that have been called upon to respond to the need for investigation and inquiry and relief fail in their duty and obligation, then we as citizens must assume that role to the best of our ability, because we are stewards of this planet. We don't own this planet. We must care for this planet.
Text message received today at 5:56 p.m. Matt, here it is. I just want to tell you that we got the permission to fly at any altitude.
Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to this info meeting. Despite persistent trails in the sky, we were unable to confirm the first test results. At 8,500 meters above sea level, the air traffic controller wouldn't allow us to get higher, and we were unable to fly into a trail again. Although we took up 70 liters through the filter, the analysis showed sodium, potassium, and ferrous oxide. But unlike the first time, no barium. Further measurements would be necessary because many questions still remain open. Questions that should be answered by public authorities and by scientists, and not by us, the citizens. What we know is that the phenomenon is real, and the question is, do we still want a man-made covered sky on allegedly sunny days? As for myself, not for a moment more. Therefore, I think it is time for an official and independent scientific investigation. After the film had been finally completed, I heard about a sensational study of the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology.
My name is Ulrich Lohmann. I'm a professor for atmospheric physics here at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, and my special field is clouds. We know that flight traffic is growing by about 5%, and because flight traffic increases, it is also important to perform measurements of aircraft engine exhaust. We know that aircraft engine exhausts contain soot and particulate matter, but we actually wanted to know the chemical composition, and such measurements are very rare. 2 years ago, we had the possibility to measure aircraft engine exhaust at Zurich Airport, together with the Federal Office of Civil Aviation. And there, we could basically measure the chemical composition of aircraft engine exhaust from certain turbines. And what we found were mainly soot particulates, pure carbon that is also emitted by cars. But we also found metals. In the aircraft engine exhaust, we detected 16 different metals. Among others, we also found aluminum and barium. And as I said, they come from the kerosene, from engine lubricant oil, and aluminum can also come from the turbines. We made measurements from the jet fuel as well, and noticed, in the range of parts per millions, that the jet fuel contained aluminum and barium.
Aluminum and barium in the jet fuel? For over 10 years, this was, according to scientists, entirely impossible and absurd. And now it seems that these toxic substances are really dispersed into the atmosphere without any regulations. With the rise in air traffic, these substances will increasingly affect the environment and our health, unless public authorities will finally act in the public interest to stop this pollution for the benefit of life on planet Earth.